What's going on, everyone? My name is Robbie. I'm one of the owners of the SharpMoney Discord, and I'm a semi-professional sports bettor. In the past couple of years, I've made $75,000 sports betting, meanwhile working a full-time job and having a family. So today's video, we're going to talk about the sports betting exchanges, which are just really starting to get popular across the sports betting industry, and it's for very good reason. Today, I'm mostly going to talk about NoVig, just because some recent news has came out about them. They just released their total cash traded in each quarter of the last 4 quarters, along with an announcement that they just raised $18 million worth of funding. So I'm very interested to see what they're going to do with that. They're obviously making some huge strides to being the number one exchange, and they obviously have very big plans, which I don't personally know about, but I can make some pretty good guesses about it. But I do want to take this opportunity to just let out my thoughts and explain where I think this market is going and how big the 2025-2026 NFL season is going to be for not just recreational bettors, but professional bettors, and also the progress of these exchanges. So let's first just talk about NoVig's total cash traded in the last 4 quarters, because I think this is eye-opening. When I saw this chart, I mean, I knew they were scaling, but at this rate, we're talking about some crazy numbers here. So let's look at this chart that NoVig posted. They did $1.9 million in traded liquidity through their exchange. So basically, NoVig is just an exchange that hosts peer-to-peer betting. So if I bet one side of the line, someone needs to match the other side of that bet, obviously betting the opposite team and the opposite odds that I bet. Essentially, what the exchange does is they just hold your money and then pay out the winner. They don't even take a fee, hence their name, NoVig. So that's exactly what this total cash traded means. If I put $100 in on one side, someone else put $100 in on the other, there was $200 traded into NoVig. So we're looking at Q3 of 2024, and these companies are relatively new. I don't know the exact time that these companies were created, probably a few years old, but over the last year is the first time I started hearing about them, and I've been pretty involved in this space. So, just they're really starting to get more mainstream the past year. So Q3 of 2024, they did $1.9 million in, liquidity or total cash traded. And then in Q4, they had a huge jump, over 30x. In Q4 of 2024, they did 74 million. In Q1 of 2025, they did 232 million. And then in Q2 of 2025, they did $482 million of total cash traded throughout their exchange. And the reason that this number is so shocking, they really only 2x from the previous quarter, but Q2 is seriously, there's nothing going on. We're talking, April through June. There's literally nothing going on besides baseball. So there is not that many people even trading into NoVig. So when the NFL market opens up, you're going to get larger bettors, more volume of bettors, and Q3 for them is going to absolutely skyrocket. And in my opinion, with NBA coming around, with the NFL happening, NHL comes back, we have that kind of pocket where all 4 major sports are happening at once. And just with the NFL, the amount of liquidity that will be traded in the NFL, I mean, these numbers are probably going to easily double again, in my opinion. But I want to talk about this climb in liquidity. What does it mean for a recreational bettor, and what does it mean for a sharp bettor? What does it mean for the sports betting community in general, and where the hell are these exchanges going? So I would say, with my friends that are not sharp bettors, not a single person has ever heard of NoVig or ProfitX or any of these exchanges. Like they're still not mainstream at all. And I hope in the next year or so that the education will reach the public and people will understand how important these exchanges are. Now, let me just try to appeal to a rec bettor right now with how I'm explaining this is right before game time. This is where a lot of rec bettors will be placing their bets. For kickoffs at 1:00, they're watching pregame at noon, and they're placing their bets from noon to 1. If you go on FanDuel, you're going to see the spread set at -110, -110. Essentially, that extra, 10 cents on each side of the line, that's your VIG. That's the tax. And basically, for -110 line, you're looking at about, I think it's 4.5% VIG. So if you are someone who bets -110 lines, you are typically going to lose at negative 4.5%, of the bet you placed. If you place $100, you're going to lose $4.50 on average. Now, with NoVig, these markets for MLB, the spreads, totals, and money lines are often shaping up, right before the game starts to 1 penny differences between, money lines. So you go on FanDuel, you might see, money line at -110, But if you go on NoVig, you're going to see a plus 101 and a minus 102. There's going to be 1 penny difference in between the odds there. And what that means is you're almost gambling for free at that point, because there's pretty much no tax that you are paying. There's almost zero expected value, maybe slightly negative expected value on every bet. Now, for a rec better, you have to understand that, all you want to do is gamble and not lose money. And by betting with these very, very low margins and not giving up all this tax, you're going to be able to bet for so much longer. It's going to just really make you enjoy the process a lot more. Now, I also predict that these markets, like these MLB markets, are shaping up to these 1 penny, 2 penny, 3 penny spreads between their odds, an hour before game time. But with the amount of liquidity that I'm guessing is going to come on these NFL lines, I think these markets for NFL money lines might get to 1 or 2 penny spreads like days before the event even happens, because there's so much liquidity shaping up each side of this line. There's going to be people backing every single move and really keeping these numbers so tight. Now, for professional bettors or even top-down bettors, this is going to be very important, because the exchange is literally just a place full of information. There's so many sharp bettors that are shaping up these lines that you can now use the exchanges as sharp information. If you see the exchange trending in one direction, you can assume money is coming in on that side. Like I said, not many rec bettors even know the exchanges exist. Pretty much all this money is funneled in by sharp bettors trying to pick off good prices. So we can now use, we typically use sharp books like Pinnacle, Circa, and Bookmaker as our source of truth. But I predict going forward, the exchanges are going to really be our source of truth, where the market is moving and what the numbers should actually be set at, because there's so many people shaping up this line. It just makes perfect sense to me. So as a professional bettor, the exchanges are awesome too, because it's just an access to more information and also better prices. One thing with, NoVig is adding more markets as they go. And with one of the turnoffs was, if you were a rec bettor and you logged on to an exchange, you would see, all these markets, let's just say NBA season, where you wanted to bet, some random player to score 20 points. No one was matching your bet on the other side, because there just wasn't enough money being moved through. Now, if you log on to the exchange during the football season, I can almost guarantee you every single prop bet is going to be loaded with money on each side. And there's going to be plenty of opportunities for rec bettors to get down on the random markets that they like to bet. So hopefully, with the knowledge about, the low VIG and basically just gambling for free for rec bettors, all the markets are going to be there. I think they're working. You can parlay stuff now on the exchanges. They really are starting to, or they should start appealing to rec bettors. Now, the key is really educating the rec bettors, because they don't really care if they've placed a bet minus 120 or plus 100. As long as that team wins, they really don't care. Now, that is something that the industry as a whole needs to kind of look at and try to educate the rec bettors. But at the same time, the rec bettors is what keeps the sharp bettors in business. So you don't want the education to go too far, I guess. Anyway, I think it's going to be perfect for rec bettors and also, professional bettors for the many reasons that I listed. And I could go on and on about this, but I just wanted to share my original thoughts and kind of make a prediction on where this is going. Now, we also see some of the big companies like DraftKings and FanDuel start talking about prediction markets. So, in the next couple of years, who knows where this is going? And, NoVig is operating under a sweepstakes model right now. And right now they're kind of starting to get picked apart state by state. The regulators are starting to look into the sweepstakes model. So there's probably going to be some change in how they operate in the future. I'm from Massachusetts, so hopefully the sweepstakes model is still good to go for the long term. Other thing I didn't mention about Professional bettors is like myself. I'm fully limited on every single retail book. I'm 10% on FanDuel, which is the most money I can get down, where they will take 10% of my action compared to a rec better that just opened up their book. And FanDuel still has some reasonable limits, but other books like MGM, ESPN, I mean, I'm down to less than $10 per bet on some of these main lines. So the exchanges for me are my out, and really one of my only outs without creating multiple other accounts, because the exchange will never limit a profitable bettor, because they're not losing money to me. It's another peer losing money to me. And if they can just move money through their system, that's how they're operating. And NoVig isn't taking a fee now, but in the future I'm sure they're going to have to take a small fee eventually to really make profits. I'm not sure how their business model works, but eventually they're probably going to have to start taking some small cuts, if I were to guess. But just wanted to share my thoughts on this. Always open to discussion. This wasn't even a planned video. I kind of just started I was making a video about betting tips in the 2025 season, and I started talking about NoVig, and I was like, I just want to let my thoughts out. So this is unfiltered information. I'm just rambling on here. I just want to hear your feedback. There are probably other things that I did not think about that I would have loved to add to this video, but I didn't write anything down. I just went for it. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. I also made a video on how to beat the exchanges, how to beat them betting. So definitely check that out. I appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you next time.